Let me welcome, and we're talking about the Detroit days. I don't know if that's where the book starts or not, but Congressman Keith Ellison represents the 5th Congressional District of Minnesota.
Yep.
In the U.S. House of Representatives. That includes the city of Minneapolis, its surrounding suburbs. He is also the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and the chief deputy whip of the Democratic Caucus. His book, brand new book, and I saw him. Matter of fact, it was at the State of the Union, and somebody had said they had the book, and I said, I haven't had the book. I don't have the book. I don't have the book.
This is an outrage.
That's right. Well, we're going to get it, and I'm going to come in studio. The book is My Country, 'Tis of Thee, My Faith, My Family, Our Future. And Keith Ellison is the first Muslim elected to Congress. Are you currently the only Muslim in Congress, or is there now?
No. Andre Carson, who dutifully represents Indianapolis, Indiana, is a Muslim too.
Yes.
Yeah.
His mother was a congresswoman.
Actually, his grandmother.
Was it? Oh, that's right, his grandmother. Because every time I see him, he always says we were both raised by grandparents. That's right.
Right. Julia Carson was a wonderful grassroots activist in Indianapolis. Converted that grassroots activism into a wonderful career. Did a lot of great things for people in housing and homelessness. Julia Carson left Andre a wonderful legacy, and he's maintaining that.
Let's talk about the book and why you decided that. I guess we can say it's a memoir.
Yeah, it is a memoir.
Yeah.
It actually starts out on a day I think you will remember, which was when President Obama was inaugurated for the first time. It was a cold day, and I remember standing there watching the 44th president, first black president, be sworn into office, remembering how Aretha Franklin was singing "My Country, 'Tis of Thee," and my mind just began to I'd say wander a bit. I thought about how at the other end of the mall, Martin Luther King had used the words of "My Country, 'Tis of Thee" in his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, a little bit less than 50 years ago at that time. And then I remember as a school kid growing up in Detroit,
no problem,
how our teachers during Black History Month taught us another version of that song, "My Country, 'Tis of Thee, Stronghold of Slavery." And this was an 1838 song, which was written by abolitionists who opposed slaveholding in America. So this song began to resonate, and the different meaning that it took over the course of the time in our nation, to me, was profound. From slavery to civil rights to the first black president, this idea that, in the idea it holds for me is, look, our country is not and was not founded as the sweet land of liberty, but we have been striving to make it that, and we are on a road to make it that. And it is the responsibility of every American to make a more perfect union.
When did, in the memoir, in the book, and you write about this, when did your political activism start? When did you become of age? Where did it start, and how did it start?
I had two political births. One of them was my awakening to just political activism. That started in Detroit, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And then was my awakening to electoral politics, which was different. My parents, one is from Louisiana, the other's from Georgia. They talked about civil rights.
Now, were they Muslims?
No, they weren't, but they were amazingly tolerant and inclusive. My father was sort of agnostic.
All right.
He was sort of a Christian by default.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was a very active Catholic and was one of those, she sent us to Catholic school. Yeah.
Okay.
I went to University of Detroit High School, which is an all-boys Catholic high school in Detroit.
Right.
And so that's sort of the orientation I had. And so I went in, even my high school, the slogan or the saying was "Men for Others." So I had this sort of thing where you got to serve. You're supposed to. It's what you should do. You should be about service to community. So that was what I was about. That's what I was doing at Wayne State. I was active in the anti-apartheid movement. I wrote for the South End newspaper. I did a lot of this kind of stuff because I believe you have to serve, you have to make a contribution to community, but I always was reluctant to invest hope in electoral politics.
Now let's go to the electoral process. I don't want to give away everything in the book.
Right.
You got to get folks to go buy it.
Right.
But how does one from Detroit end up in Minneapolis?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand it's cold in both cities, but one city is predominantly black. You're coming out of the Coleman Young era, know, black political strength, and you end up in Minneapolis, and so talk about that process. And you're a Muslim, and you get elected to Congress.
Right. Well, I converted to Islam at Wayne State when I was 19 years old.
All right.
You should know that, and you know very well that Detroit is about 80% African American.
Right.
Minneapolis, and my district in particular, is 75% white. And the other 25%, you have about 12% African American. You have a Hispanic population, which is from Mexico, Ecuador, Guatemala, all over. And then you have a Asian population, primarily from Thailand and Laos. And then, of course, you have others as well. We have the largest urban Indian population in the United States. Okay, so I just basically made a life out of that rainbow coalition politics that Jesse Jackson's so famous for.
Starting where? Where did you start?
Well, my first vision of what it could be was watching the Jackson campaign, right? In 84,
Jesse
88.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But we actually, if you wanted to but Minneapolis is a town where Hubert H. Humphrey was the mayor.
Right.
So in 1947, he says in front of the Democratic Convention, no, we have to leave the dark night of segregation into the bright light of integration.
And Strom Thurmond and them
walked out
and created the Dixiecrats.
Right, and that's Minneapolis.
Right.
See, that's Minneapolis.
Right.
And Hubert H. Humphrey, great leader. Actually, he led the filibuster fight against those same segregationists. Took place over the course of 54 days to see the 1964 Civil Rights Act pass. So that again is another introduction to, what politics can do for people. But the real clear example of somebody using politics to make a difference in the lives of people and maintaining their values was a guy named Paul Wellstone. Senator Wellstone, I remember meeting him. I was a brand new law student. No, I was a brand new lawyer. I just got out of law school. I met him. He was running for the Senate. Nobody gave him a chance. He came up, and I challenged him because I figured this is just another politician looking for a photo op. Now he's down in our neighborhood. Okay, well, I'm just going to ask him some tough questions. And do you know the guy?
White liberal,
yeah.
Right.
Looked me straight in the eye, answered my questions seriously, patiently, took me seriously. And that surprised me because what I expected him to do is just say, yeah.
Just
fine.
brush off.
Yeah. Thanks, kid. Bye. Leave. Get rid of this guy. So, but he didn't do that. He actually was interested. And then he had this slogan, everybody does better when everybody does better. Everyone does better when everyone does better. Meaning that when any individual does better, it helps all of us do better. So we should invest in all of our community, poor, people of color, gay, straight, whatever. We don't leave people out. And so seeing him run on a principle that was inclusive, that was not just non-racist, but was overtly anti-racist, kind of made me see that, you could deliver good things, maintain your value system, and be in elected office. And when he stood up and opposed the war in Iraq and risked his whole election on that, I was kind of a believer that we need people in office who will stand up for right
you're
things.
Still an African American.
Yeah.
You're still a Muslim.
Yeah.
You're in a district that's 75% white.
Yeah.
What was the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome? And
You know
how
what?
close was your initial congressional election?
Well, it's a very democratic area, so the real election was the primary.
The primary. And you were running how many in the primary?
There was a bunch of them. It was a highly contested primary. And I can tell you this, in the primary, it was rough. It was a real battle. But it wasn't until the general, when for most Democrats it's supposed to be a cakewalk in my district, it was a battle as well because my opponent just his whole election campaign strategy was to say that Ellison is a Muslim. And I'm like, yeah, I am a Muslim. Well, did you know he was a Muslim? He's a Muslim, you know. He is a Muslim. So this is what my Republican opponent, his whole campaign was just race, was
religious
bigotry.
Now, how did you overcome that?
You know what? During that I stayed in a lot of prayer and meditation, and I worked very, very hard. And I just reached out to the people on the basis of what we all share. I'm like, you know, he's talking about my religion. I'm talking about jobs. I'm talking about getting us out of Iraq. I'm talking about promoting diplomacy as America relates to the rest of the world, as opposed to, you know, building up this super duper military that's bigger than the next 14 countries combined. I'm talking about raising the minimum wage, and I'm talking about paid sick leave, and I'm talking about environmental sustainability. And he wants to talk about my religion. So I just stayed focused on that. And said, look, you know, I believe in inclusion. I believe in religious diversity. I believe you ought to be able to marry whoever you want. That's your personal business. And these things resonated with people from diverse backgrounds. They said, you know what? I don't care what the guy's religion is or his race. I think he's better than that guy. And so credit to the people of the 5th Congressional District who did not let themselves be distracted by things that really shouldn't be the determining factor in a voting decision.
So now, was Congress your first office you ran for?
Nope. I was a state legislator for 2 terms, and in those 2 terms, I worked on protecting kids from lead exposure, because that was a big deal for me.
So everything was issue oriented.
Yeah.
You didn't hide your religion.
Never.
But you didn't focus on your religion. But
still
your opponents. but you say still don't. But you don't. And
right.
I know when we meet, it's always some rally, some issue.
Right.
It's not. But then. So how are you treated in Congress? Because, man, it seems like it's, you know, if you're a Muslim, and it's like you've got a stamp on your forehead.
Yeah.
And so how do you treat that in your book?
Well, let me tell you, Joe, the good news is that most of the ugly behavior that I have to deal with is rare. I mean, to be perfectly honest, it's amazing and unusual and offensive because it doesn't happen every day.
Okay.
When I first got to Congress,
and it certainly doesn't happen on the floor of Congress.
Well, no, not really.
Not directly.
Not directly.
Yeah.
But it has.
Yeah.
But it usually doesn't.
Uh-huh.
So, for example, a guy named Alan West from Florida got up and said that no Muslim should be in Congress.
And he's directing that at you.
Yeah.
Right.
And directly at me.
Yeah.
And also called me a communist.
Yeah.
And
now, of course, he's not in Congress.
Well, you know.
Because why?
His district got redistricted, and he had people there who didn't think who wanted their congressperson to work on their behalf, not just toss hate at other people. Right?
Let me ask you a question. Are you set for time? You have to look out what we're looking at, because I'm 1 minute out, because I don't want to keep you from a vote.
Yeah, we got a minute.
Well, we got to go to the top of the hour. So,
no, we can stay till the top.
Can you to 9:15?
Yeah, we're cool with that.
Okay, let's do that then, because we're just getting into it. It's getting good. I mean,
all right.
When you brought up Alan West, man, I can go all day on that one.
My man.
But the book is My Country, 'Tis of Thee. Congressman Keith Ellison is in studio, and I want to talk about because you also write in the book about your Muslim faith.
Yes.
And how it impacts your decision.
Right.
As it relates to public policy.
Right, yeah, I do.
And I think people need to hear that part, too.
And that is very fair. Like I said, I don't try to make my religion a thing, but people do sometimes wonder, well, you know, we've heard that women can't drive in Saudi Arabia. Is Ellison okay with women driving? You know, I mean, these questions, I mean, to me, it's obviously, of course I do. I believe in equal rights for everyone all the time. But, you know, people need to try to know that there's a lot of diversity in the Muslim world.
Like there's a lot of diversity in the Christian world.
Yes.
Same, you know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they overlap.
Right.
They'll overlap, and you know.
Well, there's some Christian Talibans out there too.
and we were just scratching the surface. And his book is, and trust me, I've been trying to get him over here for a few weeks, and he was kind enough to take the time not only to do this interview, but actually come in studio. My Country, 'Tis of Thee, My Faith, My Family, Our Future, Keith Ellison. And let me get right back to this. And again, this is on our Facebook, and we also put it on my website. We have a bookshelf, Madison's Bookshelf, so
Awesome.
we'll put it up there. And this audience buys a lot of books. This is a great read. I mean, I'm one of these folks. I love just going, jumping from chapter to chapter.
Sure.
And of course, I jumped to the Detroit chapter, and I'm looking at all these names. And when I was in Detroit, you're in high school.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in there. I'm just out of college.
Yep.
And it's a heady time because Coleman Young just got elected
All kinds of
mayor.
stuff.
You had Kenneth Cockrell.
Ken Cockrell, he was amazing.
Amazing attorney.
Yep.
You had the New Africa movement. I mean, and this is, you're watching all of this.
You had Drum, which is the Dodge Revolutionary Union Movement.
The Union movement, absolutely right.
You had local this and local that. And you also had it was a time also
Pole Town.
With
folks, they took over the whole name, just
knocked down
on everybody's home. Right.
And it was a time when announcements of auto layoffs were common, right?
Mechanization at that time.
Yeah.
That's before they even started moving plants out.
But didn't it feel? I mean, I worked for Mel Ravitz in about 1982 or 3.
Mel Ravitz.
He was a city council member,
right?
And his job for me was to go and sort of like keep an eye on all the plant shutdowns. And it seemed like every week they were announcing layoffs at one plant or another.
And explain to people the impact that it was having on communities.
It was deindustrialization. It was. I mean, so we were talking before about how Detroit had this massive buildup post-war, and even before that, as this industrial hub, and how we were talking about how African Americans, but also people, whites, everybody kind of came there to work in the auto plants. But in this period of time, 70s, 80s, was population loss, was suburbanization, was plant shutdowns, and it was literally devastating the community.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And people who you could make a good salary on less than a high school education in Detroit,
and have a brick home with a yard, front, back,
right?
Good health insurance.
Yep. Barbecuing, good enough food, and a retirement plan.
And a retirement plan, good public schools,
yep. You could
expect 9 yards.
You could expect your kids to go to
college. John Conyers always talks about his, and here he is 80-something. His father was one of the UAW original black organizers.
Sure was.
And his father, and he said, my father on an automotive salary put 2 boys through college.
Sure did.
One turned out to be a congressman. The other one turned out to be an entrepreneur for a dealership.
Yeah, we all know about Ford dealerships that Nate Conyers.
And Nate Conyers, right.
Yeah, and so, this was the Detroit that we grew up into. A lot of activity, but a lot of fear. I remember you remember Bill Bonds was like the major anchor in town.
He was the Bill O'Reilly of Detroit. No,
but
he actually challenged. You weren't there when I don't think. But he challenged Coleman Young to a boxing match.
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, you might have gone off to Minnesota by that.
But I could tell you.
He was the
But
main
he occupied a lot of space.
Yes.
And he said, I remember he said, or it was at least attributed to him, that, hey, last one out of Detroit, turn off the lights,
right.
Kind of thing. And so it really devastated the city. And, I ended up moving myself. I didn't, I love the home of my place of my birth. My hometown now is Minneapolis. But when I went to law school at University of Minnesota, just the ability to feed my family, my young family as a young lawyer, was a very big difference, and so the opportunities were where I sought out where the opportunity was.
Talk to us about what's going on, and you do mention this again in the book.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on in Congress now? I mean, in your honest opinion, you've been there a while now. What's going on?
Very succinctly, what is going on now is some money-rich individuals, billionaires, have invested massive amounts of money in like think tanks and also just PACs. They have recruited and retained people who will do their bidding, and those people are willing to go all the way to the wall to pursue that agenda. And
when you say all the way to the wall,
shut down the government.
Okay, shut down the average person listening, what does that mean?
That means shut down the government. That means cut people off unemployment insurance ever since December 28th. That means cut food stamps. That means cut investments in the national, the National Endowment for Health and National Endowment for the Arts.
So how do you, as a progressive congressman, and again, how do you counter that? Because and your colleague Jim Clyburn points out, it's all arithmetic.
It's all math. Yeah,
it's all math.
Clyburn's a wonderful mentor and colleague of mine. But I mean, there's really only one solution, and that is organize and push back. See, because our superior numbers will defeat their superior dollars, but we've got to organize our numbers. So that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, and one of the reasons why I'm such a big fan of your show, because, we're getting the people aware of what's going on. I can't tell you how many people I run into who will say things to me like, oh, well, how come y'all can't get along in Congress? I say, it's not that we can't get along. It's that we got people who do not believe government has a role to play in the lives of people. They don't believe in the transportation infrastructure. They don't believe in the minimum wage. They don't believe in government regulation. They believe lower taxes, smaller government, because that means they get more money and they don't have any accountability.
Did they believe in government when that bridge in your state fell and people were killed? Did the attitude change?
Well, yeah, it changed suddenly. I also believed in it when they were in a financial free fall in 2008, and they needed Hank Paulson, who was the Treasury Secretary, to go save them from themselves when we had this massive bailout. They believed in it then.
Right.
But they don't believe in bailing out the average homeowner who also got hit. They don't believe in bailing out the unemployed who are in crisis. They don't believe in doing anything for people who've been victims of gun violence. What I'm saying is, if you go back, this is before your time or mine, Joe. It's if you go back to the 1950s, people who supported Barry Goldwater's campaign in a book called Conscience of a Conservative, they said in that very book, that I do not mean to pass more laws. I mean to repeal them. I do not mean to improve government or make it more efficient. I meant to reduce its size. These people are anti-government because if you have a government regulator says you cannot pollute the water, you must not sell bad meat, you best not sell a bad mortgage that'll ruin somebody's financial life, they're like, that's job-killing regulation, and they don't want no part of that. And they were doing it on the House floor yesterday, trying to destroy the Consumer Products Financial Bureau.
Now, what does that entail? What do you? It sounds like they're taking the consumer out of the protection.
Right. Well, like yesterday on the House floor,
all right,
they had a bill to dismantle the consumer agency that was set up during Dodd-Frank, the last financial Wall Street reform bill, to protect consumers. This is an agency that has saved consumers over $3 billion and has saved veterans money. These payday lenders will set up right outside the Army base to go rip off these young soldiers, right? Well, this agency fights them back and protects these young soldiers' money because they only make about $17,000. I know that because my little son is active duty military, 19 years old. And so my point is they don't want that. They want the big banks to do whatever they want. They want they want to just let the consumer be like a Thanksgiving turkey and everybody just takes a slice. It's and so we're fighting them yesterday because they don't want accountability, but whenever the public coffers they can take some money out of it, they want it. Barry Goldwater, by the way. 2 minutes left. Barry Goldwater, by the way, his family made a fortune because of government support in Arizona, whether it be water or whether it be protecting them from.
That's how he made his.
That's
money.
how they made a lot of money, and so, but all these big fortunes have a government dollar at the bottom of it. But these people want to climb up the ladder of opportunity, then pull it up for the rest of us.
Yeah.
So so that's what's going on in Congress. I tell people. We could work out all our problems if we just capitulated to these bullies. but we're not going to do that. So you be ready to buckle up your seatbelt, you know.
So what do you want folk to the message?
America's worth fighting for. America, the American dream that if you work hard, you can make it, and that everyone, liberty and justice for all, should have a shot at that dream, and that it is imperiled by people who want to divide us based on race, religion, whatever. We have to come together as a nation and have this value that equal opportunity for all, liberty and justice for all should be what we fight for. We should never quit, and we should never expect it to be handed over, and we cannot take it for granted.
Neither one of us were able to make it yesterday to the White House.
Right.
I'm sorry that I missed it.
I was on the House floor defending the CFPB.
I was traveling, but you think that this Brothers Keeper initiative is worth fighting for?
I support it 100%, and I just want to say to folks who say, well, Obama should have done it before, well, he's doing it now. Like, embrace the good, hold it, use it for all you can. The president is sincere and dedicated. He and I think that I'm happy the president's doing this. I think people should gather around it and make the most of it. And because, look, if Midwestern farmers are in trouble because of drought or flood, America goes to their support. But what about young African American and Latino men who are finding it very difficult to get jobs and education? America should go to their support too, because in America we should support each other. That's exactly the message of the Brothers Keepers thing, and I think it's a good thing.
And it's a message of the book too. The congressman from the 5th district. The book again, My Country, 'Tis of Thee, My Faith, My Family, Our Future. It's all in the book.
It's in there.
It's in there. And congratulations.